Alright, hello everyone, and welcome back to another WebDev lesson. In today's video, we're going to be covering more basic HTML concepts. What I'd like to cover today are some lists. So we're going to talk about unordered lists and ordered lists, and how they're different, how visually they're different, how conceptually you can imagine they're different, and how that really applies to everything we've been talking about so far and moving forward. So apart from lists, I'd also like to talk about tables, what they look like, how you can think about them conceptually, and how maybe we can modify some of the things about how your tables look, and of course what they are. I hope you have already downloaded the exercise and you've been working on it throughout this course. You have a website in mind, a project you'd like to do, because that's what we're going to be doing. We're just going to continue with what we've done so far. Alright, now let's get into some code. Alright, so what we're going to do, as usual, is we are going to go ahead and open up our project files. What I'm going to do today is actually a little bit different from what I've done before, and not in a very big way, but in just a small way that I think you'll actually learn to enjoy. I'm going to open what's called Visual Studio Code. You don't have to do this. In fact, if you'd like, you can stick with what you've been doing this whole time, and you've been using Sublime, which is right here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use code because at this point I think you should be pretty familiar with how an IDE works, and in my mind Visual Studio Code is going to give you a little bit more power than than Sublime would have. So we call it VSCode, or some people just call it code. As you can see here, this says code, but we're gonna use VSCode because one, I use it every single day for work and for lots of other things. It's a much more powerful IDE than Sublime is. It has it's much easier to install plugins. They call them extensions. You can just do so much more with it than you could with Sublime. So we're going to use this from now until the end of this course. If you'd rather stick with Sublime, you can of course do that, but I think at this point you're ready to move on to something a little bit more powerful than what Sublime has been able to offer us so far. So let's go ahead and open up the same folder we were in before. We're going to go to our desktop, and we're going to go down to what I believe I've titled Exercise 1. And I'm going to open it up here. And as you can see, we have these three files here. I have a couple extensions installed that give me some really cool things, and I'll be talking about them as we go along in case you'd like to install the same stuff. So what I'm using here is VSCode Icons, which is actually an icon extension that gives me a better insight into what file I have here before I open it. So as you can see, this is the HTML5 symbol, this is a JavaScript symbol, this is a CSS symbol, and it shows me that before I even open the file. And that's right here. VSCode Icons is an extension you can install from the marketplace. So if you just go to VSCode-Icons, you can install the same thing if you'd like to, and there it is. Another thing I've done is, or another thing you'll notice, this comes out of the box with VS Code, is this outline, which is really cool. It actually shows you and gives you an outline of what your code looks like, and you don't have to, get bogged down with all the details. This kind of says, here's an H1 that has an ID of top, right? There's a break here. All this stuff happens inside of the center tag, which happens inside the body tag, and then we have our HTML, right? So it's not completely accurate because we do have head up here at the top. Not really sure why it's displaying below the body, but it can't always be perfect, and there's probably a reason they do that too. I just don't know it. I don't use this outline very often, but if you find it useful, you can definitely keep that open. Some other things we can talk about as we're going through, so let's just go ahead and move into the code. So what we've got here is, let me open up the browser version, the front end, and we'll make our own window for this, which is great. And this is what we made in the last video, right? We've got all this content. We can link to the top. We're linking to these specific sections, which is really cool, right? And click here to see a definition of puppies in case you happen to need that, right? You weren't sure what they were. And as you can see, it's a little bland, right? We're going to take care of sprucing up the styles in a little bit, but what we do want to handle right now is this particular spot looks a little bland, right? I mean, it's a little hard to tell that, one, that these are links, which we can definitely improve on. Two, that these are individual links, right? and that this leads to a different place than this leads to. What we're going to do is we're going to make these each bullet points in a list. So let's talk about lists. There are essentially two different kinds of lists. We have what I'm going to show you right now is called an unordered list. So it's a UL, right? And we also have what's called an ordered list. And take a wild guess. What do you think the two letters are going to be? OL, right? Ordered list. And let's talk a little bit about unordered lists for now, and then we'll maybe change this over to an ordered list, but I actually think this is going to be best with an unordered list. There are some times when you'll use both, but we can show you that later. So for now, let's talk about an unordered list. So when you have this wrapping unordered list tag, right, what you're going to do is inside of that, you're actually going to have LIs, which are list items. And so I'm going to take this href, right, and I'm going to put it right inside here. This anchor tag is going to go right here. And so now, oh yeah, this is another feature of VS Code. This is why I love it so much. This is called formatting. So I've used an extension called Prettier, and I can show you that here real quick in case you'd like to install it. So it's called Prettier, and yes, I have it installed. This actually allows you to prettify your code to make it look prettier. So that rather than, let me take this back to what it was, it's a little hard to read. I do this, I do Command Shift P, and then I say format document, and it formats it so it looks a lot nicer. And this doesn't mess with the front end at all, still looks the same. This is that unordered list we're seeing, and I'll talk to you about how to use that in a second. But yes, so this is VS Code has a couple extensions. That's one of them. Another thing I've done is I've turned on Autosave, so I don't have to think about saving my document every single time. It saves it automatically. If you'd like to know how to do that, I'm sure you can look it up. You can probably poke around in the settings yourself, or you can go to our Slack chat and ask me or someone else in the community for help, and someone will definitely be there to answer your question. All right, so let's real quick convert the rest of this over to a list item, an unordered list. So we'll put this in here. Oops. And we'll grab this guy and we'll put him in there too, in a list item. Just like that. And now we'll go to our site, and as you can see, it's not real pretty yet, but that's kind of what we have at the moment. And let's see if we can fix this. All right, so what I've done is I've styled my unordered list in a way so that it looks like this, which it's a lot better than what it was before we did this. So I'll just real quick show you what I had before. So I'll take that out. This is what it looks like before, right? And then if you'd like to make it look like the improved version, this is what I've done. I'll talk briefly about this. This is CSS, so we're not really going to get into all the details about this because that's covered more in our CSS course. But what we've done is this is a list style position, and what I've told it to be is inside. And what that does is it moves it from all the way over here to all the way over here, basically. We're not going to get into all the details right now. And then I've removed the padding because when you do this, you know what? I said I wasn't going to get into details, but it looks like I'm just about to. I'll just get into some brief detail. When I get rid of this, right, I have this here. Give me 1 second. This will do it. Okay. Yeah. So what you'll notice is I'm showing you the view of the code from the front end. What you'll see is while that's highlighted over on this side, so if you watch where my mouse pointer is now, you see the green that's over there? That's actually our padding. So it's this part here, that's that green padding, and there's 40 pixels of that padding. What I want to do is I want to make that 0. And what happens when I do that is you just saw that shift over. So if I go back in here and then I remove it, you can see the difference between that. It's subtle, but it makes it look better and it's more centered than if we didn't have that. So that's what I'm going to do. If you'd like to make your lists in the middle, just do this for now. There are lots of other ways to do this. For now, this is probably the simplest way that I'm going to show you right now. When we get to the CSS portion, you'll see there are a lot better ways to do this, but this is it right now for this course. So here is our unordered list, and basically the unordered list is just bullet points all the way down. So if we had a couple more list items, right? Let's actually just duplicate this. A couple more list items, you can see all the bullet points, right? All the way down. And that's really all an unordered list is. If I wanted to make this an ordered list, an OL, right? You'll see that they're actually numbers now instead of the bullet points. So really, it's just a preference of, you know, does the order matter or does it not matter? Don't think of it like, I want numbers, so I'm going to use an ordered list. If you need your stuff structured in a way that starts here and ends here, use an ordered list, right? If you don't care the order, you can do it this way. If you'd still like them numbered, but the order doesn't matter, you can change what these look like using CSS, and we can talk about that later in the CSS course. So imagine that this is only for the case in which you don't care what the order of it is. You just need all these items listed in a nice way that looks like this. If you'd like to change the bullets, you'll use CSS, and you can make them numbers, you can make them squares, you can make them anything. It's not the actual bullet points or the numbers that makes the list. It's the idea behind it that the content in here doesn't need to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One thing doesn't come before the other. It doesn't matter what order these are in. In fact, I'll switch them up right now. It doesn't matter what order they're in, they're the same, still the same content. In our particular position, we're probably going to want to use an ordered list because one thing comes before the other. If you'll notice here, we have learn about helping, shelter pets, what are turtles, and then we love taking care of animals, right? So they do come in an order. So help them, what are turtles, we love animals, that's the order. So we'll probably want 1, 2, 3, and so on. And if we have more items, we would add that to the list. So there is the brief introduction to ordered and unordered lists. These list items, before I move on, these list items could be anything. And if you wanted to do, let me just show you real quick. If I wanted to make like an indented item or something like that, I could do that this way by having a list item inside of a list item. Indented, there we go, just like that. And now you can see it's kind of been indented like that. So those would probably work. Let's see. So maybe I'd say something like new section, right? And then I would do this. Right, new section, and then that's been indented in. And I might be able to move this like that, and let's see what it does. No, it doesn't do anything different. Because they respect, so we're going to get into the difference between block and inline elements, probably in our CSS course. I don't know, we might get to it in this course, we'll have to see. But these are block elements, so they're only going to be one on each line. And if you look in here, you'll see that there's only one on each line, right? All the way through, one on each line. So they're block level elements, so that's why it is indented, but it's not going to be on the same line as this new section. So cool. We've covered list items, we've covered indenting, we've covered ordered lists versus unordered lists. What we're going to do now is we're going to move on to something called a table. And we're going to say, let's make, I know what we'll do. Let's have a section that is just for our schedule, right? And here's what we're going to do. We are going to make a new HTML page, and we're going to link it to this. And let's do that briefly, and we'll talk more about that later. Schedule.html. And we're actually going to set up the same sort of skeleton here. All right, so what I've done is I have created another HTML page, and we're actually going to link to this. So I'm briefly going to describe what I did. I linked to it here in the head, right? I created a link that just kind of links the two files together. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually include another link here. And I'll tell you what, we'll put it up at the top. And where's the best place to put it? Maybe it should go up here, right? So just above contact us, we'll say, let's create a new unordered list with a list item. And this one is going to be an anchor tag with a href of schedule. Let's do this. So this is actually part of why I love using VS Code. This is another extension, and this one is called Path IntelliSense, I believe. Let's check my installed things. Path IntelliSense, here it is. And it actually helps you with your path names, which is really nice. So I could do this // and it shows me all the files in this directory, right? And if I wanted to go up a directory, it shows me all the files that are in this directory, right? So it's very, very helpful. So I'm going to use // and we're going to link it to schedule.html. We really don't need the / here. We're not using relative links. And we're going to say link to schedule and Z that because I do want a capital S because capitalization matters. And here we're going to have an H1. Remember, this top priority is our header of the page. We're going to say schedule, right? Now we're going to go over here. We're going to link to this, and there we go. We are now on the schedule page. So let's go back. Let's fix our links, which is kind of acting like our nav bar right now, which is cool. We're just going to add some styles to it. And we're doing this very verbose way. And I'll tell you what, here's another thing we're going to do. We're going to take this and we're going to throw it in here to give us kind of a unified look. And we're going to say here, we will do schedule. Let's make this a H1. And actually, this is an H3. Now that we have an H1 and an H2 there, say schedule, right? And then let's make this centered like we did it on the other page. And I believe this is my IDE telling me center is deprecated. Yeah, I think that is. It's like, you shouldn't be using center. Well, I am right now. Let's also add an H3 for home here. That way we're a little bit more familiar with it. Okay, so now we've got schedule, and we're going to do this. There's home, swap over, and there we have schedule. And we also need a link to home, don't we? Let's do another one. We'll say li, and we'll make the href here, and we'll say index.html, just like that. We are covering a lot of stuff in this video, from list items and lists to tables to linking between pages. Lots and lots of stuff. This is going to be a bit of a longer video, but as you can see, we now have home and we have schedule. And I'm going to swap their positions just like that. Take this and move it up. Perfect. And now home is on top, schedule's on the bottom. Great. And let's unify this a little bit more and I put schedule above the list here. So let's do the same on this page. As you can see, this is a lot of work. This is why tools like JavaScript are so widely used, just because they make this so much easier. And you'll understand why if you start taking the JavaScript course. It also doesn't look very pretty, and that's because there's almost no CSS except for this little bit of styling we've got going on here. But a lot of copy and pasting. It's not auto-generated. We have to hard code all of this, but right now that's what we're going to do. I mean, we got a working website, which is cool. No functionality quite yet, but it's definitely getting the information out there, which is great. What we're going to do now is we are going to make a table, and a table is going to house our schedule. So we start with a table tag. This kind of makes sense. We're going to say table. Then we're going to say table row, tr. And here we're going to say td, which stands for table data. And we're going to say, well, let's say time. And we'll then do another one that says td. And actually, I think we need to do table header. So let's make this a th that says time, right? And th, time, and open. And then we'll put in parentheses, put yes / n, yes or no. And we'll say, let's say we've got multiple different pet shelters. So we'll have location, right? And so now if we go to our schedule page, you can see we have this sort of thing going on, right? Which doesn't look very impressive yet, but let's give it a second. Let's go table row, right? And in here we'll say table data, and we'll say 9 o'clock for time, and we'll say table data, and we'll say open yes, and we'll say table data, and we'll say location, Fakeville. There we go, because we don't have a real location here. And as you can see, it has actually put it inside here. What we're going to do is we are actually going to add some styling to our table. So we're going to say style border thickness, border width. And we're going to make it, let's do 4 pixels. And we're going to say border. We're going to say solid. And we're going to say, actually that should do it for now. And as you can see, we've got that. Now let's do the inner border. So we're going to mix this up a little bit. And we're actually going to do some major styling here in a kind of a CSS sort of way. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to do it this way. I know a lot of this might not make sense. I'm not really going to explain what I just did yet. If you really want to understand all of it, you're going to have to watch the CSS course to really understand everything that's going on. So basically, I've got style up here in the head. I'm styling our table headers, and our table data, and I'm giving it a border with 1 pixel, solid, and black. And I'm giving this a style of width 50%. So really at this point you can just apply these styles. You don't completely have to understand what's going on with the styles right now. What I really want you to focus on and understand are these. This table tag, the table row, right? The table headers, and the table data. So let's break down a little bit what's going on here. What we have going on is we have table row, or we have our table, right? Inside our table, we have our table rows, and a row is like this. Currently, we have 2 rows, right? These are our rows, which makes sense. And we also have, for the first time, we have our headers, right? Which is the head that kind of defines what each column is, right? Where they are styled default. The default styles of the headers are bold, maybe a little bit bigger font size, just to make them stand out as headers, right? And then we have our another row, and we have our table data, right? And the table data is what goes inside each of these columns, right? So what we're going to do is we are going to duplicate this, and we're going to say, oops, there we go. Let's say 10 o'clock, say yes, Fakeville, right? And then let's say this particular person who owns this pet shelter has to move from place to place. It's only one person, right? So let's say they're open at 11 o'clock in Fakeville, no. Oops, say yes. And here's what we're going to do. I'm going to modify this. I'm going to say this is Fakeville. And then we're also going to say in table header, we're going to do not real ton, right? Not Reelstown. And we're also going to have totally made up bill. There we go. All right. So now we've got those, and what we're going to say is, because this is fake fill, yes, fake fill, and we're going to do, for here, fake fill is closed, and we're going to say we're open in not Reelstown, so we're going to skip that one. We're going to go table data for not Reelstown, and we're going to say X. So now, if you look over here, that has data, the rest of them don't. Let's make this a little bit better, and we're going to make these blank. So there we go. We've kind of got our grid going on. And let's say in this next place, let's copy this row, right? We're going to say this is 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. They're open, not open, right? Because they're all on lunch break. So we're just going to go there. And here's what I'm going to do. Give me 1 second. All right. So I've modified just a few things. What I've done is I've added dashes, so it's a little more visible when there's no data there. I've also changed something for the table data so that it's centered. You can do this, or you don't have to do this. I'll show you what it looks like without it. You'll notice everything is just kind of like that. This kind of just centers everything and makes it look nice. Again, you don't have to understand this yet. We'll talk about this more in the CSS course. So now, as you can see, 12 o'clock, they are not open. What we're going to do is we are going to say, this is our table row, right? Let's copy this one more time. Let's just go until 3 o'clock, and let me fill in the rest of this data. So now you can see we have all of our data filled in from 9 to 3, and you can tell we have fake fill. We are open from 9 to 10, right? In fake fill. 11, they're in not Reelstown, they're open. Oh, lunch break, right? They're not open. Or I'm sorry, they are open at 11, not Reelstown. And then 1 o'clock, not Reelstown, they are also open. 2 o'clock, totally made upville, they are open. And 3 o'clock, totally made upville, they are also open. So there is the schedule for our entire pet shelter, all on our schedules page. All right, we covered a lot of stuff in this video. We went over lists, unordered and ordered, talked about the significance of both of those, how to use them, all that kind of stuff. And then we kind of got off on a rabbit trail, and we actually created a whole nother page for our website, which is really, really cool that we can now do that. We linked that page, and we created our own mock nav bar sort of thing where we can now link between the two pages, home and the schedule page, which is great. Every good website needs a nav bar if there's more than one page. And then finally we got to tables, which is one thing we definitely said we wanted to get to. So we created our own schedule for our website, and now people who visit it know where they can go at what times, what's open, when the lunch break is in case they forgot. And all that stuff is readily accessible between both pages, and you can swap between it. It all works great, which is really, really cool. So I hope you got all that. If you didn't, definitely go back and watch it again. If you don't feel like watching again, you just have a few questions, go to the Slack channel, ask me for help, ask someone else for help. There's lots of people in the web development community who would be more than willing to help you out. And I hope your own website is moving along nicely and you've included some of the things you learned today. Don't forget to push your stuff up to GitHub and make commits often so that you have that undo button readily available in case you mess something up and you're like, oh no, how do I fix this? You can go back and revert to a previous commit when everything was working fine. All right, good luck with your site, and we hope to see you in the next video. Bye.